Okay, so good morning. You join us this morning on a very, very chilly morning, but I'm glad to say that my guest with us today is a man with a very warm and big heart.
Oh,
And that is Pete from the charity CHEXS.
thank you for those kind words, John.
Very good to have you here, Pete. It's very good to have you here.
It is a bit chilly, but yeah,
It is.
It is groovy.
It is. So, Pete, the reason I called you in today is I really wanted to get you in because you're obviously someone that I've met on a personal level. And what you do in terms of your charity is truly inspiring. And I just want to give you the opportunity to have a little bit of a voice, to be able to tell people a little bit more about CHEXS and what it is that you actually do. Maybe also cover a couple of the events that are coming up, and of course ways in which people might be able to help support. And I think once they hear the story, it will truly inspire them into that. So before anything, we need to kind of figure out first of all what leads anyone to any point. So you're obviously now here with CHEXS, founder of CHEXS, moving it forward, but there must have been a big story behind that, and I've heard parts of it, and it's pretty amazing as well. So I guess the first thing is, can you just give me a little bit of an insight of who is Pete Maiden, and what led him to this journey?
And the why I've done it.
And the why.
I think going back, I'm dyslexic. In my primary years, I didn't really understand why I couldn't spell my name, Peter, writing it Dieter, and neither could we schools. And I was categorised as being thick or in the remedial classes, and I had shocking self-esteem when it comes to literacy and reading, especially reading aloud, and I still have it now. And we then went to middle school, and a certain Miss Baxter, at a session with my mum and dad, sat there. I was sitting next to them, and basically said, "We're worried about this, Peter, because we don't know what he's going to do with his life because he can't really read or write and spell." And I remember hearing those words and thinking to myself, "My God."
So she said this whilst you were in the room?
Yes, whilst I was in the room. Very motivational. I think it was like mega different then. I'm 51 now, so no criticism to the teacher. It was just that's the nature of things at the time.
Lack of understanding.
Lack of understanding. I then moved into secondary school, and Mr. Shaw was a history teacher, and he was also my tutor. And he was a top bloke, and he couldn't understand why vocabulary and talking about the Industrial Revolution or medicine or anything like that. It was like, my God, Pete, you know your stuff. As soon as it come to put it on paper, it's like, it's all over the place. And my geography teacher, Mr. Whittle, was exactly the same. And the two of them sort of joined together and said, "Pete Maiden, there's something not right here. How can he be so vocal and so vocabulary, and just explaining everything? But when it comes to the exams or writing things down, it's shocking."
Yeah.
And I then went to see certain psychiatrists and sociologists and all of that sort of stuff, and diagnosed with dyslexia. And I was 14. I was in year 9, year 10, and it was it was good. And I think my mum and dad were slightly relieved they could understand.
I had a reason now as to why, and obviously back then, no one really knew too much about it. But.
And I had this, I had a mouth. I was quite a cheeky chappy. I had lots of strategies to get out of stuff in class, but I was getting a bit frustrated as my English class would be doing a play, and they'd be getting all the textbooks out, and they'd be saying, "You're going to be that character. You're going to be that character." Pete, go next door with Mrs. Schofield and do your spellings and practice your English. And so I was always disconnected from a school within my class with my peers, because every time they were doing stuff that I would really be good at, I was always taken out and asked to spell my name.
And then you feel marginalised, right?
Yeah, completely. But that's just the nature of it was. I then watched a documentary about a guy called Jacques Cousteau about diving, and I was like, "Oh my God!" I was like, "That sounds amazing." And
that is back in the day.
That is back in the day. And then later on, there's another thing about diving in the Navy, and I thought I'd really like to join the Navy. And so I went off on my little adventure trying to join the Navy. And Mr. Trainer, who was my PE teacher, he let me leave the school, I think 2 or 3 times, to go to St. Helens to the recruitment office in the Navy.
Okay.
So I missed half the lesson, half the day. 2 buses later at St. Helens, set my entrance exam. And
what kind of age was this, Pete?
15. set the entrance exam, and I passed it. But whether I passed it or not, I don't know. Just to put things into context, the naval assessment is 0 is GCSE a grade C, and then 1 is the naval's assessment, and 9 is the last gauge of where you are.
Nice.
And it subsequently came out that I had a NAMIT of 9. So
Okay.
yes, so whether I passed it or not, I don't know. But the chief of the recruitment office, he saw something in me, and he was a top bloke, another guy, and who really invested in me. Invited me to then go to Liverpool for a medical. I then came back for another interview, and then my dad, who used to work shifts, had been in the kitchen making a cup of tea from working his night shift, and I was in the kitchen. It was around May, June time, and I said to him, "I want to join the Navy, Dad." And he was like, "Okay, but you know, it's big. You've got to do exams and good go." I said, "I've done that, Dad. I've done that, Dad." He was like, "You what?" And he hadn't realised I'd done it all, and all they needed to do was then go into the recruitment office, sign the paperwork, and lo and behold, I then joined the Navy on the 10th of October, 1989.
Wow. And what age were you then?
16.
16. It's a real leap of faith for your parents as well, really, isn't it, signing that off?
Yeah, massively.
Yeah.
I think on reflection, I've got children of my own now. Josh has just gone into year 7, Bex is in year 4, and the thought of Josh at 15 saying he wants to join the military horrifies me. But I think lots of things have moved on since then. I think your age and where you are in relation to the chapter of your life. I don't know.
Okay, all right. So listen, that's led us up to kind of the main stage of where you started a career, if you want, for a better word, or a new life. So I've heard some stories about you being various accomplishments of the youngest ever for certain things. So kind of here's a little period for you to showcase, kind of a little show.
When I joined the Navy, I really struggled. Especially in basic training. If you can imagine, you've got to learn so much knowledge, and you're in a platoon or whatever you want to call them. I was 16, but there was other people in there that were the same age as Mr. Trainer, my PE teacher, in the group. So you had 30-year-olds right through to 16-year-olds, and the amount of knowledge that you have to learn was massive. Just general naval knowledge: what is a frigate, what is a destroyer, what is that type of rank, and all that sort of stuff. And I was really struggling at that, but I remember my number 1 instructor, we were doing the assault course for the first time, and I was on the leopard call, and he was like, he looked at me, he swore a little bit, and thank God we found something that you're actually good at. And I think that's what the Navy did. The Navy focused on what I could do, not what I couldn't do.
Yeah. And
I was a radar operator because I was told to join up as a radar because I wanted to be a diver. And on radar at Dryad, I was really struggling with the theory side of it, and I was about to get back classed because I was really struggling. But what they do with the radar, you then go into simulators, and in the simulator, when you're doing the talking, the computer does all your calculations for you, so you have to manually do it. And I was pretty good at it, and I was really good at doing the talking. And lo and behold, I passed and joined HMS Brazen in, I think, the June 1990. And in the September, it sailed for the Gulf War, and so I just turned 17 in the August, and it sailed in the beginning of September. So yeah, I was the youngest serving in the task group for the Navy at that time.
Amazing.
Yeah.
It is amazing.
Young, naive, not really knowing what I was doing. Loads of great people around me.
So how long were you in the Navy for?
So I was in the Navy. I was in the Navy until 2002. I became a ship's diver, which is like a part-time diver on a ship. I then passed clearance diver's aptitude, but then the Navy then said they weren't going to give me manning clearance to leave the radar branch to join the clearance divers branch. I then wanted to get my teeth into something and get a challenge. I was quite into phys, and a really close friend of mine, Kate, was a PT instructor, and I thought, you know what, quite fancy that, motivation, that side of things, especially on ships. So I spent 2 years preparing for aptitude, and I passed that as well. And then I joined HMS Spartalax. That then went to Bosnia, and in the October I got a signal through from the Manning, but I had a clearance divers course and a PT course, and I had a week to decide which one I wanted to do. And I spoke to my dad, and I started PT course in the February 96. But unfortunately, it was in Bosnia. I was taking a group of blokes for a run. CHEXS is on my LinkedIn. Hello, CHEXS. And I fell in a manhole. There was a drain cover that had been removed, and we were sprinting back. It was dark, and I hurt my foot. And over the course of however many years, just couldn't get it fixed, and the other one went. And so I eventually got medical discharged in 2002. And then in London, my last job was working for Director of Naval Recruitment. So we would work with children from Bradford or other areas that weren't normally joining the Navy. And what we did was give them personal development, where we take them down for a week and really engage with them about what the Navy is all about, leadership, management, that type of thing. It was really rewarding. And then the Navy then seconded me to London Youth, which is a charity that runs all the youth clubs inside the M25. I was in the Navy, but my line manager was a civilian. And I'd go around to the youth clubs, do rowing, boxing, whatever it is, and say, oh, by the way, you can do this in the Navy. And it was a really great stepping stone. And then I joined a charity called Skillforce that was in Islington. And I was the tutor for 10s and 11 predominant lads that were top dudes, but just needed a little bit of guidance. They did maths, English, science, Hackney Community College for trades, that type of thing. And I was the rest of it. And I cut my cloth there and learnt lots of tricks of the trade about how to engage and motivate a young lad or a young girl who was a bit like me when I was at school. Everyone has a niche. I think sometimes the school curriculum, no fault of the schools here, they've been really henpegged into maths and English, which is mega important, but there's so many other things that attribute to a person's success in life. And I realised then it's quite good to do other things.
Of course.
And that's how I sort of stumbled into what I do now, really.
Wonderful thing. Right, I think that's a nice natural break. So it's a really good and interesting journey to find out where you've kind of come through, all the way through to where the charity element has come in. So we're going to take a very quick break now, and then when we come back, we're going to actually go into CHEXS itself, when that was launched, what the idea was behind it, how it's doing currently at the moment, and a few more bits around that area. Okay.
Brilliant, thank you very much.
Okay, Pete, welcome back.
Hello.
It was really interesting hearing all about that first part. And what I particularly liked was your journey really effectively has come from when you were at school. There was a lack of understanding, dyslexia. People thought that maybe you were just a naughty, unruly child. But of course, there were bigger reasons behind it from that. And I think going all the way forward now to CHEXS itself and some of the children that you're working with and supporting those families have probably found themselves in that same situation, if that's fair to say. So let's start from the point now of CHEXS being born. So when did that idea come into your head? What was the process of that, and how has it developed from then until the current day?
Okay, so I left teaching in Islington in 2007, and the Labour government at the time had created a thing called Extended Schools, which was a £1 billion initiative around opening up the infrastructure of schools for the community. It was around extended learning opportunities, accessibility for community to utilise the resources, family learning, adult learning, that type of thing. And I quickly was asked to then start doing what I was doing in London with a group of young people that were amazing, just to give them alternative opportunities to learn different life skills. So I was doing that on the same token as what I was doing with Extended Schools. And then my boss, the head then, Joe, asked me to be an assistant with the school, to look around accessibility for the school. I then managed the sports department, the sports centre that AstroTurf and the swimming pool. I was doing family support and Extended Schools. And then in 2010, I approached Joe and said, I'd love to set up a charity to support more children and young people and their families of what I was doing in London. And there's one Extended Schools was not going to be sustainable because there's no way that the income generation of it was going to be there. The schools were already under the cosh. And she said yes. So I went around, asked quite a few people that I'd worked with and that I knew who would like to be trustees. We got a board of trustees of 10, Joe was the chair, and that was 2010. And at the same time, there's a thing called the family support worker role in local school partnership. And what I had learned when I was in London, when I was working with these lads and lasses, that we were getting really great trusted relationships, and the parents or the guardians or the carers who were looking after those young people were then coming into the school environment to learn how I'd been able to get a lad to do X, Y, and Z, and at home he was still doing whatever. And I realised that you couldn't do one without the other. So when CHEXS was established, it was around, one is working with the child and young person, giving them meaning and purpose, but also having a link with the parent. It's not a signpost, and it's within an internal team, which now is called our whole family approach. And in 2011, September, I was 2 feet over, and the charity started to deliver services and getting funding from schools to do what we did under the charitable umbrella. And then in 2013, we changed the name to CHEXS, which is Community Homes Enrichment Extra Mile Support. We weren't a marketing guru, whether that's the greatest of names, but there are values, and we still are communities, we still work in homes. Enrichment is the greatest thing that any young person or anybody can have. Going the extra mile. When you're in a forest and you're working cropping some trees, or you're taking some hawthorn down in January and it's cold, you've got 10 lads that are cold too. It's hard. And to do it for 2 days, for 30 weeks, you've got to go the extra mile. Or you're on the school gate speaking to parents in the rain. You've got to go the extra mile. There's no such thing as hard to reach. You've got to be in an environment where you reach those people, and those type of, it's hard to do. So the extra mile is massive, and support. We should just support each other, and we support everybody that we can. And that's how it came.
I mean, ultimately, it is incredibly hard, but you're doing it out of a passion, right? That's what inspired you to do it. I mean, you see it in yourself, I guess, from your childhood to
passion, yes, but it works. Everybody's got a niche. Everyone's got an opportunity if we give them those opportunities to find what they're good at and what they flourish in. What is their calling? And schools are doing such an incredible job, and there's been lots of focus on like baccalaureate with governments and here and there, and it's not here, I'm not blue, I'm not red in any, it's just that CHEXS. We get the opportunities to help enrich children's lives, and the schools are really, really on board with that. There's a thing called personal development. It's about how you're supporting a child, not just in the school, but in the community, in the homes. And what we do, we do that really, really well. And yeah.
So let's just drill down into that in some very kind of quick, snappy ways then. So we've heard about what CHEXS stands for. We know you've gone through that, so we kind of understand that. So if I'm a parent at a school, what are the traits, if you like, that my child might be exhibiting or showing, which would make me reach out to your charity? So who is the archetypal person that needs your support, your help?
Anybody that needs help. And what I mean by that, it's self-esteem. So self-esteem is the fundamental thing that I believe that everybody drives your life. And if you feel good about yourself, you can really achieve, and you can take that leap of faith because you feel good and you've got people around you. So there's not one particular child or young person that the charity works with that has got a particular strength. It's just what they are needing. Now we have different programs to support different groups of children who maybe want more physical, more leadership, more dynamic approach, which we'll go into Lee Valley. We'll use Broxbourne Council that are great partners to be able to give them a tangible entity to work with. And it's all around a framework of meaning and purpose, resilience, aspirations and expectations. And that's what we install. So there could be lads that could be, needing guidance and discipline and structure and support, but there's also loads of young children that are just not achieving because they may be a bit of an introvert, haven't got the self-esteem to put a hand up even though they know the question or the answer. And it's just giving them an opportunity to build those confidences, to stretch themselves.
So the points where that might come from is that the parent might contact you directly saying that my child's struggling with X, Y, or Z. It could be a teacher, presumably, saying that a pupil might require some help. Is that involved where you're going into the schools directly, or is it more that they're just aware of you as a charity and they would reach out to you?
100% with the school side of things. Our growth program, which is all about goal setting, resilience, working together and working on one-to-ones. Schools will then refer a child, whether it's in primary or secondary, onto the growth program. And the schools are incredible in allowing the charity to help support the children that it's value added into what the schools are doing amazingly well. We're a strategy within the big strategy of a school to then give extra support to that child and young person. So everything that we do, it's targeted for that, from that referral side of it. Parents can ask to say to the school, can my child go on the programme?
Yeah.
But the gatekeeper really is the school, because they are coming out of core curricula.
Mm.
So there's a balance between how much they miss in lessons and how much they're on the CHEXS programme.
Sure.
And that's a constant conversation. So it's a targeted approach to support children and young people. So back in the day when I was at school,
Yeah.
I would have hoped that I would have gone on a programme like this, which would then have developed my self-esteem,
Yeah.
shrunk my anxieties around writing and all my phobias, and then said, you can't do that, but you're pretty good at that. And that's what we then do. And we work collectively with the school.
Okay. Seems like an obvious question, but presumably if they're allowed to go onto the programme, or they put forward for the programme, there isn't a cost.
No, there's no cost at all. Our business plan, schools pay around 25 to 30% of our turnover, and then we income generate from multiple facets. We have a trust and foundation, so we've got a really good relationship with like Henry Smith, which is a foundation, the Lottery, Children in Need, Garfield and Weston, Hearts Community Foundation. We've got really strong support from those, which equates to about 50% of our income, and then it's around helping from business support. So a couple of years ago, Warburton's gave us 20k to implement a transition programme. So the year sixes that we were working with in the primary, moving into secondary, we worked with them for a year, and it was 2 years. It was an amazing project, because we had the relationships with the children, getting into secondary school, that familiar face, and it just joined and bridged the gap.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just a flash in the pan. It wasn't like, oh, we're going to do transition from September through to October. It was, we're doing transition, worming the term from July through the summer holidays, joining your new secondary school, right through to the following Easter. And it worked really.
Amazing. So, just some of those places that you listed. Obviously, you are based within Chesham.
Yes.
But that's not exactly your coverage area, is it?
Predominantly it's Chesham, so there's primary and secondary schools there. What we do is very labour intensive. So when you're taking 10 children or young people out into the forest, the ratios are very high. It's 1 to 6 or 1 to 4. So we are catering for a group of young people to do something meaningful, which is a full day's activity. So we don't go anywhere other than the Broxbourne area. One is Lee Valley Park, even though it was very long. We've got to be able to be in the bus no more than 20 minutes to get out there and to do something meaningful, and then come back. And the costs are quite expensive in relation to how we deliver it. So schools can't afford to pay it. Schools under many years are now doing more social welfare. So, the food bank, trying to find someone's clothes, trying to make sure that they're washed, trying to make sure they've got a bed. All of the other constraints of social welfare that the schools are doing an incredible job with, on top of teaching and learning. And when Ofsted come knocking, they're looking at teaching and learning. But all of these other stresses, what CHEXS does, we try and take some of those stresses off them, because we've got the expertise, we've got the know-how and the enthusiasm to help support that's what we do. But it links massively also with the family and the parent or the guardian.
Okay. So I think that leads us quite nicely to how companies can help the charity. You said the Warburtons, that was a very inspiring contribution in terms of what they made there. So really, in terms of what CHEXS is looking for, do you need another Warburtons, as it were, or are you happy to take a fiver off someone once a month? How does it generally work? What do you need in a way of support to be able to help that support to others? I
think as the charity's evolved, we've got an amazing board and we've got an amazing team, and we've learned how to report what we do, because we do really, really well in supporting a child and a young person, and our data is very strong because we've invested hours and hours and hours working with a child or a young person or a parent. It's not signposting, it's not a telephone service, it's face to face, it's very hands on. And I think what we try to do is that there's some preconceptions that are unconscious sometimes with CHEXS. We don't work with naughty kids. No naughty kid. It's like, I would love my lads and lasses, especially, to go on a CHEXS program. It's something to celebrate. It's a great opportunity. Before I went to London Youth, I was going around universities, joining universities for 2 weeks, joining them with the PE, trying to target universities for them to join up as officers. what we're doing here about leadership, problem solving, communication, improving your own learning, it's really high-end stuff.
Yeah.
And what we're doing is giving those children those tools to be able to say, yeah, I've got that confidence now, I've got those skills, I can do X, Y, and Z. So it's like anybody that can help us break down any barriers, that's not naughty. It's not naughty. It's a celebration to be part of CHEXS, and we're definitely getting onto that momentum now. And we're parents. We're not with parents. We're parents with stress. You know, I've had a bad 3 years. My wife was diagnosed with cancer, going through the mill and back, and I remember speaking to the teachers. It was during COVID, and one of the teachers took us aside, and when we went into isolation, I was knocking on the school door for a breakfast club, and it was closed for two weeks quarantine. And I was about to break. My wife had just had one of her rounds of chemo. She was spewing into a bucket. I was trying to get my daughter to go there, and I was like, oh my God, I can't cope here, because CHEXS was still doing everything through COVID. 50 minutes later, I had a phone call from the staff bringing me up saying, Pete, I've heard what's happened. Can we help you? And I'm going to start crying. It's like that stress that I have had in my life. And it's someone to talk to. You know, if you haven't got anyone to talk to, whether it's financial or, you know, your teenager's morphing from primary to secondary, you haven't got a clue about, oh my God, he's doing this now, she's doing that now. It's just someone like the salt of the earth with the family support team, the Angers and the Lees and the Andrews of this world. And just some of it's lived experience, and it's not judgmental. It's sitting here with a cup of tea, and they're there. And it's not on a phone or on a Zoom screen, it's in person. And the stress in your home, they help with that. And as long as people realise that, and sometimes people are thinking, oh yeah, they're on the take and they've not done this and not. No, there's so many people who are being dragged into real hardship. Poverty's on the increase. It's just, that's what CHEXS does. And then we can work with the child, and we can work with the parents collectively, so they're not having to signpost and signpost and signpost. It's like the whole family approach at CHEXS allows us to work with the family, and it's not judgmental. I've got lived experience. Yeah. The rest of the teams have, and there is light at the end of the tunnel. It's not rocket science. Just want to care. Caring is the key, and you're in it for the right reasons. Yeah,
caring is the key. Okay, I like that. I like caring is the key as a kind of natural end to our conversation today. So I think it's very apparent. So at this point, really, you know, it would be missing me not to say to people how can they get involved. You know, whether they're an individual, whether they're a small business, you know, there's just a little bit they can do, or whether they're a larger Waltons type. They're looking for something. We're coming into a new year soon. People will be having those discussions, and I think what you do as a charity is incredible. I think the people behind it, including yourself, are incredible, and therefore, you know, let's see what we can potentially do. So, if you want to have a look at the cameraman who's over there, and just tell people in terms of how they can get in contact with you to help.
I think anybody that likes to want to support and make a difference in people's lives, you can get in touch with me on my email, ptm@chex.co.uk, or my number 0797 426 2875. And what we're looking for, who we're looking for, anybody that wants to give back. Payment in kind. You know, I set up a charity, but I'm not head of finance or HR, and lots of businesses have got real specialisms, just like you are now, John. Thank you so much for doing this, in marketing element to it. So payments in kind is really important. Corporate social responsibility, anybody that wants to help financially, we are always needing funds to help maintain and develop what we do. And volunteers, you know, we have an amazing volunteer, Bob, who comes into the forest with us, Sue, who's the salt of the earth, who helps us with our administration support. So there's a load of ways you can help, and it's not just financial. So please get in touch. We'd love to work with you.
Any direct phone number?
My direct number is 0797 426 2875.
The cameraman's very clever. He'll put it down at the bottom.
Right, okay. But thanks so much for this opportunity.
Yeah.
And opportunity is the key for CHEXS. All we do is create opportunities for children and young people to do other things that they've never done before, and the schools are incredible to allow us to give these opportunities to the children, and also an opportunity for a parent to find somebody that they can find in and listen and to help support them. And that's what we are. We're just all about creating opportunities for people to move forward in a positive way.
Wonderful. Pete, really inspiring stuff. Thank you so much for coming and sharing the story with us today, and wish you all the best with it going forward.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for the time. Bye.